Hey, real quick, before we start the show, just wanted to ask you, please go vote. The Wi-Fi Awards are open for voting. Jim and I are up for Content Creator of the Year for the RUCKCast, and we would be very thankful if we could have your vote. Now, on to the show. Here we go. Good morning, Mr. Palmer. I hate to do it. I hate to interrupt you because you're grooving along to the tunes there, but I have to because it's time. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, John. How you doing?
Outstanding. I can't complain. I mean, who'd listen?
So, there is such a rabbit hole we could go down on that one.
And we usually do.
No, I mean, like, we could do an entire episode on that.
Well, not today. We have plans today. We actually do have plans.
You know what? I've been looking forward to today. Today is a good day.
Well, and let's be honest. Today's not a good day because we're recording. Today's a good day because it's your last day of the year before you hibernate till 2024, right?
Well, yeah, but
I mean, the episode will be fun.
I've been looking forward to today because I knew we were recording this episode. And so I was like, this is actually an episode I've been looking forward to do. And so I'm actually kind of excited about today. I've been looking forward to just this episode. So,
well, no pressure, but no, I agree. This is a good one. I think it's no secret. We like the Stray Dogs. This is not a stray dog. This is a full-on season finale, which is crazy to think about it.
This is super crazy to think about it. This is our end of the year season 3 wrap up.
There should be applause here. I'm a little slow. What are you going to do? But yeah, that's crazy. We made an entire season. Nobody fired us. Nobody took us off the air. We haven't gotten any hate mail, which, I mean, it's possible now. We do have an actual email address that's been shared. So, early in the season, we weren't getting any hate mail because nobody knew how to get in touch with us, which was, maybe that was by design.
Well, we didn't have an email earlier in the season.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's been a year, right? It's been a busy year for the podcast. I'm sure we're going to get into the state of the podcast in a minute. I just have to say, this time last year I did a solo reintroduction of it because we took over from Matt Clouda, who left the company. I did one by myself for 5 or 10 minutes of whatever. And I think we did one together. I can't remember if we had Daryl on or not for a WLPC 2023 little preview. And that was it until January. And we got to January. We started doing one every other week. And I think we were good except for 1 week. We missed one. We had somebody was sick or traveling or whatever. And we were a little off. And now we're doing it every week, sometimes twice a week, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I hadn't counted on doing this, but so you took over about 14 months ago at this point, and there was 3 episodes.
Yeah, officially. I left. Clouder left, I think, close to 18 months ago. And at that time, I assumed ownership. And the reality is nobody wanted to co-host. Nobody wanted to do anything with it. And the one thing that people don't tell you about when you take on a podcast, well, there's lots of things people don't tell you. But one of the things and one of the challenges we had, aside from getting a good co-host that would actually record on a regular basis, thank you, Jim, guests and topics. Everybody's like, oh, this is a great idea. We're going to have a podcast, right? But it's a little bit hard to get, what are we going to talk about every week? And who are we going to talk to? Because, I love talking to you. We talk all the time, but I don't think everybody's going to want to listen to us on a regular basis as much as we talk. So it's been a journey, and I think we're just hitting our stride. And the numbers, which we'll get into in a minute, I think really show that off. So I'm kind of happy about that. I'm proud of that.
Yeah. So it was sporadic there for those first first 2 months where it was officially season 3. But yeah, 2023 was a good year. So I think I can dive into I'm a numbers person. I love numbers. So let's go into the state of the podcast and we'll go with 2023 is kind of where I said, that's where I joined officially. I want to say it was the beginning of January is when I officially said, yeah, I'll be a co-host, a named co-host. I kind of felt like even before that, when the previous regime was in charge, I was like the guest host or the guest co-host or something. It was whenever they needed something, it was like, hey, let's go get Jim. And so for 2023, and this is amazing to me. All these numbers are. We'll just go with that. This is going to be our 35th episode in 2023, which makes it then that season 3 had 38 episodes over the course of 14 months. So, little cheer. But yeah, for anybody, and again, I think you're right. The one thing that people don't ever talk about is, you have like 6 or 8 ideas, and you're like, oh yeah, this is going to work great. And then you get to like the 10th episode and you're just like, what are we going to talk about now? So the fact that we've gotten a total of 38 for this season, across 14 months, 35 for the year. And as you indicated, in like August, we started going to once a week, which has been challenging.
We get smart about it, just to give a little peek behind the curtain. I mean, there are definitely some times, and we had like one episode that was recorded, I think in August or September, our back to school series. We did that back to back. I mean, literally, we knew it was going to be a longer session, so we had a lot to talk about. And in fairness, we did not even cover everything we wanted to with him. We could have gone for another session. We try to get smart. We work around vacations and things like that, but it's a lot. And 35, depending on how you look at it, sounds like a lot, sounds like not a lot, because obviously 52 weeks in a year. I know there are shows that do every day or every other day or like, we're not Joe Rogan, whatever, but that's a lot for us. And again, until, like Jim said, until August or September, we weren't doing every week. We were doing every other week. And then obviously in the last couple months, we've done a few smaller like bonus episodes where we've had a couple weeks where we ran 2. But that's the one thing, and Jim's kind of was on my case about this early on. And that's why we were, linked at the hip, basically, was we have to be consistent. We have to pick a day. We have to stick with it. And in fairness, we actually moved the dates. We started posting on Thursdays for whatever random reason, and now we're on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, you'll get a new episode. For the most part, we'll tell you about some breaks coming up, but for the most part, every Tuesday you'll get a new episode. So, yeah, I'm really happy about that. I think. So you said you're a numbers guy. I'm looking at the statistics, and the number might have actually gone up again. I'm not even going to refresh Buzzsprout, but what else we got? We got 35 episodes.
Here's a number that we have been tracking heavily,
yeah.
And you're you have when I say we've been tracking this number heavily, like John and I will in the middle of the night be like, oh, this is what the number is. But for the year, for the calendar year of 2023 to date, we have 7,551 different downloads. So, or listens. And what makes that significant is the fact that when we compare it to 2022, that is 170% increase over where the show was for the calendar year of 2022. And it's a 58% increase over the best year. And
we had another podcast.
The podcast is going to celebrate its 4th birthday in February. Something else has happened in February we'll get to, but
I can't imagine what.
I just got an idea. But anyway, so
I think I know where you're going with this, and I like it.
Yeah, so 58% increase over our best year, which was actually 2021. So yeah, the podcast is growing, and it's all thanks to our listeners. So, John, get some applause for our listeners going here. Yay.
And I think that's one of the things, and I know you and I have talked about this, and we say it on the episodes. There's the outro has it. We would love to hear from people that actually watch the show. We talked to some of our coworkers who are like, "Oh yeah, I've been listening, and it's great." And I know Jim's got some threads with some of the product line managers who talk to him after we talk about their products, and they're very thankful that we're nice about their products. But we'd love to hear from people that listen. One is just it's kind of cool to get the feedback that, hey, we're listening and we like the show. Or I mean, if you think it's dog poo, let us know and we can try and fix it, or we can tell you we're sorry. But feedback is good. I think it's kind of cool. And we've got the email address out there now, so by all means, drop us a line, say hey, tell us what you like, tell us what you didn't like, let us know what you want to see. I mean, Jim mentioned it before, we both talked about it. It's hard to come up with content sometimes. We do have a list. Jim's pretty good at curating it, where we've got, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 topics that we could grab at any given time if we're in a pinch and we don't have a product coming out or something like that. But that's what we want to talk about, which is great. But if you guys don't want to listen to it, it kind of isn't so great. So talk to us.
Yeah. So speaking about episodes and topics that our listeners seem to like, I went and pulled the top 5 episodes that we've done this year. And this is simply by the numbers. So this isn't, we'll get into other episodes here in a little bit, but the top 5 episodes by what our listeners are listening to and are interested in. The number 1 was, if you can believe it or not, getting excited for Wi-Fi 7.
I'm shocked.
I know.
That had nothing to do with the topic. That had everything to do with the guest, I think.
That is because we did a lot of Wi-Fi 7. And the funny thing is, and so, yeah, that one was definitely the guest. That's when we had Bart on. And, when you have Bart Giordano, who is the Knicks, it's the Knicks president.
He is the big dog.
He is the big dog. And when you have Bart on, and this is a tip of the hat to Bart, why he is the president of Knicks. He is where he needs to be for the business unit, and I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, his episode just has been a rocket when we compare it to all the other episodes. Of the actual episodes, I want to say we're over 100 at this point with all the specials and all the other bonus ones we've done. We're over 100.
Correct.
But his has skyrocketed to the top of the list against episodes that have been out for a few years. And just over time, you get downloads and you get listens, and his has skyrocketed up there. So that was again, even though it was Wi-Fi 7 and we did that whole series, his was up there, and it's up there for a reason.
Yeah. And then looking at your list, since I'll let you get a drink of the coffee, the second one on the list, this was one of the ones I really liked. And this was one of those, I think this was before we actually cooked up the idea of the stray dogs, because this was just you and I going at it. But the great 6E versus 7 debate, with 311 downloads so far. I liked it. It was fun. Like I said, we were going back and forth, and I think at the end it was still an it depends kind of an answer. And I felt like, honestly, I thought about this like a month ago, that I probably would have additional or different answers now than even like 2-3 months back when we did it. So that was a fun one.
There's a reason why it depends, is because because it changes. But it's funny that we talk about the first one, with Bart, and it was like, it's all about the guest, but the fact that, the second highest rated episode this year was you and I don't know what that says about.
I'll take it. I'm not gonna question, and I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. I'm just gonna say, okay.
That was a fun one, and it depends. And believe it or not, I actually referenced that episode like a week ago in an email string. They were like, "What do you think about this? Should customer?" And I'm like, "Look, I don't even have to like type out 5,000 word essay. Like, just go listen to the debate." and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought, and it did really well. So,
Yep.
but the next one, number 3 for the year, this one kind of surprised. I think it surprised both of us, which was it was an episode on introducing the ICX 8200 switch. And for being a wireless podcast, and if for the super Wi-Fi people, we understand the importance of switches. And so, but the fact that talking about it, the switch, the 8200 switch, was such a popular episode, I think kind of surprised us, and still does to this day, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean and it's not the only switching episode we've had that did really well, much to my chagrin, but no, it was a good one. And I think I'm trying to remember who the PLM was for that one. I can't remember, but it was a good episode. It was it was informative. And we don't talk. I mean, I think we've done out of 35 episodes, I think we've had like 5 that cover switching specifically, maybe not even. So maybe our listeners are telling us something.
Well, like I said, I think it's one of those things where we know that, switches are important, and, and I think the only reason why the other one that we did, which I'll get to in our next segment, I think, is that people, Wi-Fi podcasts always talk about Wi-Fi, but, because of the importance of switching and the importance of a solid, cabled infrastructure and everything that goes along to support our Wi-Fi, the people that really know really like to learn about switches and other things to look at. So in that regard, it doesn't really surprise me. And when you look at the numbers, it's catching up to some of the other ones that really kind of surprised me.
Yep. And then another one hot on its heels. I feel like for a little bit, these two were like neck and neck, like they'd be within like one episode or another. Now the switching has got a little bit of a lead, but episode number 72, why RRM is better in the cloud. Now, we had Rajiv Iyer on to talk about cloud RRM. This was back, well, we're on episode 89 today. So this was back over the summer, I think.
This one we actually published on June 1st.
There you go.
So yeah, that's when we had Rajiv Iyer on talking about, because we had just announced, is it an announcement at Mobility Field Day 9?
Yeah, I think you guys walked through a demo at Mobility Field Day 9, which is all sorts of funny, and I'm going to leave it at that. Not for that announcement, but for something else. But, it was good. And I think, and we talk about this all the time, one of us is saying, I'm going to say it this time. We always come on the show when we learn something. Today's not a learning episode. Today's just a recap of what we learned this year. This is the Cliff Notes. But that was an episode that was really good. And the neat part about it is now, like, Cloud RRM is it's getting traction. There's a lot of good things coming down the pike for it. I think this is one we're going to have to revisit in 2024 as it gets continually developed. But it was a good episode to kind of introduce the concept and high level overview. Because, I mean, the reality is, right, we're doing 30, 40-minute episodes. There's a lot to get into with that.
Right. But yeah, so that one, like I said, was a nice conversation with Rajiv, and we'll get into 2024 here at the end. But to round out our top 5 for the year, it was another one of my favorites, which was Insights into IoT. And that's where I told the story about my buddy across the street, Walt, and his and the smart home stuff and doing IoT stuff. And so that's number 5. And that was a fun one to do. And I enjoyed doing it because, well, I get to tell stories.
I mean, that's the beauty podcast, right? And I mean, that was a nice episode. I mean, I don't think we've had an episode that we really were like, oh my God, we recorded that and released it. It's the beauty part about podcasting, right? We're not live. So if we really don't like something, we're not releasing it. And I'm not sitting on any, bad episodes. So, but the cool thing that Jim, we're going to record the video. The cool thing about this, as you put in this summary, I can always edit. I can make a cartoon face. 5 of our top 10 all-time RUCKcasts came from 2023. So the 2 of us are in some way, shape, or form responsible, I think, for 5 of our top 10, which is pretty cool when you think about it. Like you said, the podcast is almost 4 years old. Bart's, which is our number 1 for the year, is 4 months old, I think. And it's second all time to an episode that was like 3 years old. And
almost
4. And he's less than 100 away from that one, which, I mean, it's just, to me, it's hard to wrap my brain around that. It's just, it's really cool. So.
And to pat myself on the back, then the rounding out the top 10, a little peek behind the curtains for the listeners, rounding out the top 10 episodes of all time for the show. Then the 10th one is actually an episode that I did with Matt Clouda back in July of 2021. When I was at the airport waiting to get on a plane to go to Black Hat. And so that one's actually the top. That is now the barrier to enter the top 10 is me. So I'm responsible for, I've had a hand in, I won't say I'm responsible for it because, well, who wants to be responsible for anything?
I'm not responsible.
So I've had a hand in 6 of the top 10, but it is just crazy to think about how much the podcast has grown and the support that we've gotten from the listeners and all that stuff. So again, thank you to all the listeners for making this a great year, just as much as we did.
Yeah. And I mean, I think my goal, I mean, we're going to jump, not really jump, but I'll just throw this out there before we get to the 2024 goals or what we're looking forward to. But in my head, and I don't think I've actually spoken this out loud, I want us to be able to look back here when we're doing the 2024 recap and have all of our top episodes come from when we've been running the podcast. And that's not a knock on the previous host. That's more of me saying that tells me that we're really getting an audience and that people are listening to what we're doing and we're doing some good work. The reality is, if we'd looked at this 35 episodes in and we were doing like 5 downloads, I think we would have said, sorry guys, it's not us. The fact that the numbers are going up, it tells me that we're hitting an audience and there's people out there want to hear what we have to bring, the guests, the topics, the insight. So that's kind of what this is why we do it, right? I mean, it's exciting to me that we're reaching people. So reach out, tell us what you want to hear, and we'll keep making them.
So now that we've talked about what our listeners are telling us through the popularity of each episode, now I want to kind of pivot a little bit, and I just want to talk about what we liked about this past year.
So how do we want to do this, Jim? Do you want to do like you go, I go, we alternate? Or do you want to just run down your list and I'll run down mine?
So
because I was evil, I didn't share my list ahead of time. So
no, you didn't. I shared my list, so you had that one. But I think so. In the interest of time, I think I'm going to change it up a little bit. I think we start with we look at our top 5. What was our top 5 episodes? And we count it down, and we can change and we can pick who goes first. But we will each talk about our 5th, and then we'll count down from 5 to 1. And then this, what is this? Spoiler alert. We had more than 5. So then we'll do our honorable mentions at the end. How about we do it that way?
I think I can live with that.
So you want me to go first? I'll go first
Sure.
since you've seen my list. my of our episodes, my number 5 favorite episode of the year was the one that we actually just did, the controller cage match.
Sorry, my 5th I have is, and this is going to shock you, so hold on to your chair. Number 85, the importance of being a Switch guy. It was a fun guest, and it was a fun talk, so I had to put it on there.
And it's fun. So that was Eric Schroeder.
Yes.
And the funny thing is Eric did not want to come on. He's like, this is going to be bad. He's like, no. And I agree. That was a fun one. And Eric was a good guest. And Eric, if you're listening, there you go.
And the thing, just a little sidebar, right? Everybody that we have asked, we've had a number of people like, I don't want to be, so much prep work. Jim does like all the questions, for the most part. I think we've had one or two guests that provided some questions for us to ask them. Jim does the questions. He's like, these are the 5 we want to hit. He shares it with them. He says, like, are these good? They know what they're going to get asked. We might deviate a little bit. It's easy. It's an hour of their day at some point for us to talk to them. And it's really a half an hour when it boils down to it. So Eric didn't want to come on, and he had a great show. We had a couple other guests, right, that didn't want to come on or were nervous about it and wound up having a really good episode. So don't be afraid. We don't bite. I mean, it's only audio and video. We can't bite.
Yeah. All right. My number 4, my 4th favorite was episode 77. Overall was actually episode 17 of the season, was picking favorites. And that's where I decided we should sit down and say, what is our favorite? I had my list very solid. You could not come to any decision. But again, I had a fun time with that one. So that's my number 4 favorite episode of the year.
Nice. And for me, I went with Stray Dog number 3, Jim's time at band camp. It had, I mean, for the title alone, it had to get up there, but it was just, I'm just gonna leave it at that. It was a fun one. I enjoy the Stray Dogs because it's our time to just rap. But no, that was a good one.
All right. My number 3, now my podium finish here. And the funny thing is, this one we've already talked about, which was the great 6E versus 7 debate. That was my number 3. I had a good time with that one. I thought we were able to talk through and work through a lot of technical issues and technical things. And I think there was a lot of value in there. And the fact that it was in our, top 5 for this season, as being number 2, I think also really kind of tells me that, that was a good episode. I really like that one.
Oh, we're on number 3, right? So my third, which now I'm filling them in on your document here. I sort of, I don't want to say I cheated on this one. I didn't, but I couldn't pick one, and it was recorded together. So episodes 78 and 79, Back to School, which I felt we both felt it was an important topic. It was timely because we did it right at the beginning of school year. And I think we got a much better pair of podcasts out of it than we were expecting. It was a really good guest. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. That was Ryan McKegg, and that was a fun one. And I don't think we went into it thinking we were going to do, I think we just thought, hey, we're going to do like one episode. And then as we were recording, you and I were messaging back and forth and going, man, this is really good. Maybe we stretch it into 2, and stretching it into 2 doesn't sound good, because in the end it wasn't a stretch. It was more of a, hey, how can we compress all of this into 2, like you were saying? But Ryan was a good guest, and that was, again, there was a lot of things that I really enjoyed about that one. And I kind of forgot about that one, but yeah, that was a fun one. All right.
Like I said, we left stuff on the floor for that one. We literally could have gone for a 3rd episode. Which brings us to the top 2.
So now we're in the top 2. And this one, again, it's one we've already talked about, which for me was insights into IoT. I like that one because, to me, it just hits home as a real world example of, some of the things that we're solving. A lot of the stuff that we talk about in Wi-Fi is almost theoretical to a point. It's very much of a, hey, this is what we think it is. This is what, this is how it can do things. But when we start talking about, and then this kind of goes back to what you said about the school stuff, this is actually, when we start talking about real world stuff, problems that are solved. And when we talk about how those problems are solved, I think those are some of my favorite ones. So yeah, my second one was insights into IoT.
No, and my second, we've kind of talked about it. I'm not going to beat it up anymore. This 76 episode, with Bart, the getting excited for Wi-Fi, 7 episode, it was our best of the year. I think, I can't speak for you, I was a little bit nervous talking to him. I've talked to him before. I've been out with him before, but it's still like, that's your big boss, and you're recording. I mean, it wasn't even like you're talking to him. You're recording an episode with him. So it was a A little bit of sheer terror, but
Yeah.
no, it was a good episode. He's a great guy, and yeah, it was fun. Just simple as that. Which leads us to number one.
My most favorite episode that we recorded for the year, and it's funny because it's on your list too, just further down, was Importance of Being a Switch Guy. I thought that was I enjoyed that one. And, I've known Eric for at least 5 years at this point. And so that was a fun one for me because, it was just a totally different insight into the networking world, into the Ruckus business. And, talking with somebody like Eric, as much as he likes to play it off, I just had such a great time on that one. And I really enjoyed it and I had to work hard to get Eric on. So I think there was a little bit of an extra incentive on that one for me. But yeah, my number one was the Importance of Being a Switch Guy. I had such a good time with that one. And that's my favorite one of all time that we've done.
And I think the cool thing was, and like we said before, we try not to obsess over the statistics, but that was definitely a show that I remember posting it, and like within the I think it was the first 8 hours I saw it, and it was close to 100 downloads already. And I remember messaging you, and I'm like, holy crap. Like that was just really, I should have done this actually. Let's go back and do this. I should have said, holy, but it's just, sorry guys, I got a new toy. I got to play with it. That didn't sound good, but it floored me how well that did right out of the gate. And it was, like you said, as hard as it was to get Eric on the show, great guest and a really good episode. So my number one, again, and this really shouldn't be a surprise, 35 episodes, but we know what we liked. The 60 versus 7 debate. I didn't even think to put the controller cage match on here because I think we had just recorded it when we started doing this list. I like that format too, but the 60 versus 7 debate was almost like the early format for what the cage match became. You could have easily put it in that format. So the dork in me honestly wanted to put episode number 63. That's one of my honorable mentions. That's our first one this year. Just because of our quote unquote historical significance. And I'm using air quotes. If I decide to post this video later, you'll see them. Because yes, we're actually recording this, but the debate was just fun. And like I said, we could go on that. We could have gone on for like another hour on that. And that was just us. I mean, if we'd invited other SEs or other people in the industry, I can only imagine the kind of train wreck we could have gotten on, because that's one of our specialties. But that was a really good episode, I think. And like I said, we do have a couple honorable mentions. I already gave one of mine away. Or I had a couple. You had, I think, one.
Well, as we've been talking, I've actually added a second honorable mention.
That's
because fair. You reminded me. But so my honorable mentions now is 2. And it's funny because it's Andrea Capini with Crossbreeder. That was number 86. That was such an interesting episode. And so it broke my heart to almost take him out of there and not put him in my top 5. And the Back to School with Ryan McKegg, and so I think it's funny because it's now, when I look at it, it's like some of my most favorite episodes we had this year was talking with Ruckus SEs.
Yeah, and I mean, that was when I remember us, and it was probably about this time last year, had to be like November, December, when we had a call. It was like you and me, and it was, what are we going to do with the podcast? What direction we want to take it in? And that was one of the things that a couple of the folks on the call were like, we need the war stories. We need the stories from the field. Because, I mean, it's great to talk about, and the 8200 episode did good. The R770 did good. Introducing the new products and really kind of getting a little bit under the hood. And I know we've got some of those coming next year, both new products and more stories about the products that we released this year. But the field stories, like Ryan talking about how he deployed in certain classes, Eric talking about some of his experience, Andrea talking about what he did with Crossbreeder and what more, not even what, but why.
Why, yeah.
Those are the really cool stories. And it's good for us. I mean, I like knowing a little bit more of the history of the company and where we've been and where we're going. But I want to, I like the idea that we share these because, I mean, I'm willing to bet money, not a lot because I don't have a lot, but I'm willing to bet money that there are people that listen to this show that didn't know about Crossbreeder before. I almost feel like we should ask Andrea how his downloads have gone since, if he even keeps those track. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but I'm curious if we've driven more interest to that tool. But anyways, so in my last honorable mention, and no disrespect to anybody that we didn't call out, these are just the ones that, like, literally I didn't go through the list and go like, oh, that was good. Like, this was off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I have to put it on there, and especially because we need to have them on again. But episode number 68, Choose Your Own Cloud Path. And I say that because Cloud Path is a really good tool. But Jim and I know this. Anybody that's talked to him, and I'm going to out his nickname, Simo is an awesome person to talk to. And he's one of those people that he's got a reason for it, but I think he's kind of self-conscious about talking, podcast, public speaking, but he nails it every time. And the podcast is no different. And like Jim and I we were talking to each other. We chat all the time, but literally the three of us are writing notes and like holding up paper on the camera, and like our video is mirrored. So you can hold up something and you can read it normally, but Christopher's writing it backwards. Like he actually wrote stuff backwards. So, and then you can't read it because it's backwards, but he was like, I didn't realize the video was mirrored. And Jim's like, yeah, you've got a Marshall amp in the background and I can read Marshall. It was just a fun episode. It's one of those where, I don't think it did as well with the numbers, but that was one of those, like, as a personal one for us, it was fun to record. Like I was like, you were looking forward to today. I saw Simo on the schedule. I'm like, that's going to be fun. That's not even going to be a hard one to record because that's just going to be, it's just fun. So yeah, that's my top 5 of my honorable mentions. And it was a really good year. And I'm looking forward to what we've got coming down for next year.
Yeah. I forgot about Simo and Cloud Path, but he
still
is funny. He does. And I can't even imagine what we're going to talk about next in combination with Simo.
We've got some ideas. I tried to put it on the stage at WLPC, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a busy year for Cloud Path next year in a good way. And I think I could imagine we'll talk to him a couple times if he's got time for us.
Yeah. So now that we sort of teased it, let's take a look forward to season 4. So this is our final episode of recorded or whatever. It's our final episode of 2023. And so this is going to be released on December. I got a double 19th. I was going to say the 20th, but it's December 19th. And so we're going to take a break from recording on the podcast for a few weeks for Christmas and New Year's. And so this is going to be our final one for this year. And we'll be back to doing our, just, giving John and I a little bit of a break from, because I love recording, but man, all the rest of the stuff that goes into podcasting, man, that can be a grind. So we're going to give ourselves a break, and we'll be back in 2024 on January 9th. So you got a little bit of a break from us, and but I hope you join us for season 4. We're going to launch on January 9th. And we're planning on doing some other things for season 4, John.
We are.
This has kind of been something you've been spearheading.
Well, this all goes back to, and I've got to plug them because, I think if we don't mention this episode, you might get a little bit upset. But this goes back to what Middle challenged you on a couple months back. And part of the reason why we got a little bit, I think that's about when we started really hyper-focusing on the numbers a little bit. But doing a little bit looking at and watching some videos and listening to some people that are actually like professionals at this, because, we're just whatever. YouTube obviously gets more traction for one reason or another. I was actually surprised when we found out that like what the downloads for a podcast, what would be considered like top 20%. And if we're not there, we're very, very close, which is awesome. But then you see what it can do on YouTube and you're like, wow, that doesn't even, like, it blows it away. And we were talking to the Ruckus Education folks who kind of lorded over the podcast before we commandeered it. And, Jim and I have joked more than once, we've got faces for radio, but we're going to come back to video at some point next year. We haven't really completely hashed out how and when, if it's going to be like a, once a month special episode, if it's going to be like highlights and clips and stuff like that. But the YouTube version of the RUCKCast will be coming back. And if you guys are like scared easily, I'm sorry. Maybe turn off your monitor and just leave the speakers on.
So we're not getting rid of the audio only.
No, this is definitely an addition to.
We're just taking our faces for radio and we're forcing it into faces for video. So,
and, I mean, in full disclosure, like, we do video when we do the audio because why not? We're doing this on Zoom. We've got some new tech coming in for us that we're going to try and play around with, but regardless, we always have the camera on. We're recording it anyways. So it's one of those, as a cheap ploy of a content creator, we've already created the content. Why not put it up on a different medium? Simple as that.
So that's something to look forward to in 2024, but
that's not what I'm excited about.
I know I just said it, but I'm now going to backtrack a little bit. I'm going to take a second right here where I'm going to hype something that I've been thinking about and, trying to work through in my head how I could make this happen. And we've come up with an idea, and I hope that everybody listening decides to join us. Even though I said we're going to take a break from the podcast, we're going to try something a little different that week between Christmas and New Year's, where, it's like if you're working or if you just need a break away from the family, whatever, I'm going to do a little thing. We're actually going to do a live stream. So this is going to be video and audio, and we're going to live stream I don't even know if we could call this a podcast episode. We're going to live stream an episode of the RUCKCast on December 27th. And we're going to live stream it we're going to introduce a new Twitch channel for the RUCKCast, and we're going to have it on the YouTube channel for Ruckus Education. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my APs that I have up on my shelf above my head, or above and behind my head, and I'm going to take that and we're going to go through all 4 different firmware versions and controller platforms, kind of like the controller cage match. And I'm actually going to take my AP and we're going to run through it and we're going to demonstrate all that. And video is kind of needed for that, so we can show stuff off. And so, December 27th, it's going to be 11 a.m. Eastern time, which makes it 8 a.m. Pacific time. I hope you guys can join us, and we're going to do some video work and some audio work and some firmware work and some mobile app work and some demo work. And I'm going to just tempt every single one of the live demo gods in one fell swoop in one day, but some downtime between Christmas and New Year's. So hopefully you guys can join us, and looking forward to have some fun time on a live stream.
Yeah, and we're saving the other part for last, but we're going somewhere else with this live stream if we don't completely flame it out. And I think even if we do, I think we're just crazy enough that we won't even worry about it. But so that's not all.
I can't dispute that. If it doesn't work, we're just going to be like, well, even though it all crashed and burned when
you were those kids that, like, you touched the hot stove once and you burned yourself and you're like,
well, maybe it's not hot this time.
Yeah, let's try it again. But so that's not all. And this is one, and this goes back to what we talked about before, where we're constantly kind of throwing out ideas. And sometimes we do episodes like this where we just kind of banter back and forth, and there's no educational value whatsoever other than we're telling you some new episodes to check out, or some old episodes that maybe you didn't check out. But this came actually, I'm going to give credit to your friend, I think, because one of the comments, he's not a Ruckus user, unfortunately. He's, I don't want to call him a Wi-Fi noob, but he's not like expert level. And there are those people out there that listen to these kinds of shows that are trying to get stuff out of it. And we're like, maybe we need to be a little bit more informative, educational sometimes. So we're actually going to do a series of 10 things that you should know about Wi-Fi. So that'll start sometime. I'm sure you've got it on the calendar. I'm not looking at Teams. We don't have to right now, but that'll start sometime early 2024 as an addition to the podcast. So that'll be pretty cool. Actually been something we've talked about for a few months, but because of, as we got close to the end of the year and things got crazy with, I think WLPC Prague and a couple other events where we were both traveling, We kind of agreed that it was probably smartest to shelf it and keep it for 2024. So that's coming too, which will be, I think, pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm kind of looking forward to that one. It's the whole idea was, what are things that we wished that more people knew and understood about Wi-Fi? So that I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be fun. I'm gonna just go out on a limb here and say that if you're listening in 2024, we're probably going to do some more Wi-Fi 7 stuff. Yes, we announced the R770 a few months ago at this point, but we have I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about Wi-Fi 7 in 2024, just because it'll, there's going to be more devices that are coming out. There's going to be, so when you think about the whole calendar year of what 2024 is going to be, I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about Wi-Fi 7. So just be forewarned, there's going to be some Wi-Fi 7 talk on the show next year.
That's your favorite topic.
Yeah. And then, so I'm looking forward to it. I think, we're going to play with some video stuff, maybe try to do a little, do you think, I'm going to put you on the spot here, John. Do you think maybe we actually do some more live streams in 2024?
I think there's a chance. And I think we've alluded to it a couple times without getting too much into it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do some live stuff and so if you guys have any ideas of stuff you want us to show off, because like I said, when we have a video and we start including live streams in that, it opens up the realm of possibility, because a lot of, it's always like, well, you can't see what we're doing here. You can't see what we're showing off. But, like if you look over top of my head right now, if you were watching the video, you would see a bunch of single board computers on a shelf. And it's like, why do I have all those? And it's something that's much easier to show off on video and doing stuff like that than it is on an audio only podcast. So if you have anything that you've like, hey, you guys have been talking about this, can you show it off? Let us know, and we can start incorporating a little bit more of that into our 2024 season 4.
Yeah. And I think, it's worth mentioning that as of right now, in full disclosure, this is a week before registration opens, although we may or may not already be registered because of classes. WLPC Phoenix is February is 17th to the 22nd, I think, somewhere around that. And as of right now, as of today, we both plan on being there.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like you put two podcast hosts in a room together and something fun could happen.
And if you've ever been in my deep dive, we'll just
and you kind of, I think you sort of started to, I think a new light bulb went off when you realized that the podcast has a birthday basically in February, which I didn't even know. So maybe that goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't. But
so stay tuned. I got some downtime coming up over the holidays, and so I come up with weird thoughts when I have extra time on my hands.
What's the saying? Idle hands are the devil's workshop. It'll be fun. So
and then it's me with my helmets and other types of hats. So
well, we already had a hat this year. The helmet was 2022. The Bandcamp hat was 2023. It got a podcast named for it. Who knows what 2024 is going to have?
I'm looking forward to it, actually.
Me too. So with that, I think it's time for us to kind of wrap this one up. So what are your final thoughts on 2023 and what's coming up in 2024 and whatever else you want to share, Mr. Palmer?
I have to say that being involved in a podcast, because I've never done it. I've been guests, but I've never been an actual host, and sort of it's that whole thing of once you learn how the sausage is made, it's and so I actually, my final thought, I just want to thank everybody who listens to us for sort of suffering through some of our missteps, some of our audio issues that we've had over the years, like those few episodes when I realized that Zoom had boosted my microphone input to like maximum. So when I talked, it sounded like I was screaming. And so I just want to thank everybody for sort of, kind of going through those learning curves with us and sticking with us and hanging with us. And it's been a fun journey. And I appreciate everybody who hung in with us as we've been sort of taking this journey all together. So I'm proud of what we've done in 2023, and I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be able to do in 2024. So hopefully everybody decides to join us after the break and sort of continue this with us.
No, I agree. I mean, I would say thank you to the crowds, the audience, whatever you want to call it. We definitely have a fan base. I'd love to see it get bigger. It's definitely gotten bigger, but like Jim said, we can't do this without you. We do this for you. Let's be honest. We enjoy it. We like talking to each other. It's something we do anyways, but it was kind of, yeah. I'm going to be the dork. I got to thank you, Mr. Palmer, because the reality is, and I talked about it a little bit before, I struggled last year. I wanted to do this. Anybody that knows me a little bit knows that I had a podcast that I co-hosted just on my own spare time. And when this opportunity popped up, knowing that Matt was leaving, I was like, well, why don't I use that energy for this instead of that? Because this is corporate and it's job related and can help me learn and kind of put us in a better spot. And the reality was, nobody wanted to really co-host. I had a couple of people that were interested, but nobody was really reliable. Nobody was willing to commit. And just talking to Jim, and Jim was like, finally like, all right, I guess I have to do this, but I don't want to do any editing. And so that's kind of the work-life balance there. I'll do the editing. I do all the posting of it, so to speak, but he does a lot, and I couldn't have done this without you. That's why we're both co-hosts. I don't do this host and co-host stuff. So, thank you very much, Jim. And, to everybody at Ruckus that listens, to everybody at Ruckus that supports us, whether that's Middle, my boss, Jared, Bart, Jason, everybody else who's supported us in any way, shape, or form to get us here and hopefully to watch us grow even further than we could have hoped in 2024. I'm excited to see where we're going. I'm extremely proud of where we've gotten to. I kind of didn't really have any clue where we would go with this, but the fact that we've been able to take it and build off of what it was and 5 of the top 10 episodes of all time are this year's shows. And I think 7 of the top 10 involve Mr. Palmer. He's I think, or one's outside of the top 10, but barely. That's a testament to what we've done and to the audience that's out there that we can reach. So yeah, just a big hearty thank you. And then ultimately, like I said, we're going to be on break. We'll do the live stream after Christmas. But for everybody who, I think Hanukkah will be over by the time this posts, but I hope everybody has a happy and healthy holiday, whether it's Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever you might celebrate. I hope you enjoy time with friends and family. And we hope to see you on the live stream and in 2024. That's all I got.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Jim. I'll see you guys on the next episode next year. If you want to contact the show directly, you can email us using the address ruckcast@comscope.com. To learn more about Ruckus products and services that we may have talked about on this or any other podcast, please check the links in the About section of the show.